Hi, I'm Charles X. White, and we're back with Community Views and Solutions. We want to thank you for following us and checking in on us every now and then. And we have a special program today in a special format. Earlier today, we had our first Community Partnership Exchange Breakfast in Southwest Houston. These breakfasts are built around civic clubs and small businesses and just community folk. We've been doing them for 17 years, started in 2002, and we moved from Southeast Houston to Northeast Houston, and then we moved to Northwest Houston over that 17-year period of time, and today was our first day in Southwest Houston. Mark, can you go to a couple of pictures to start with so the audience can kind of get an idea? This was today, and you're looking at approximately 140 people, maybe even a little more. And these are civic club people, social club people. Today being, this month being Preparedness Month, we also had the City of Houston Health Department and Harris County Constable Precinct 7 May Walker's disaster team, and they had some of their high water vehicles and interacted with the citizens, and that's part of what we do. We distribute information and services. Now, this is one of our co-sponsors today, earlier today, talking with citizens. We encourage our citizens that when we have candidates or elected officials, not to be bashful. We bring those elected officials and candidates to meet and talk to the people. Also today, earlier, after breakfast, we were honoring the first district council member, pioneer Larry V. Green of District K. And his brother was on hand, and that's him and Jeffrey Boney from the Forward Times. He's also a city council member and a friend, city council member in Missouri City, and a friend of Larry Green. So he brought greetings and good tidings and words and memories about Larry Green, and we bestowed all that on his brother, the council member, current council member of District K, which is Martha Tatum, had her representative, and we also honored and said special prayers for the family of the firefighter that was laid to rest today in the funeral. Martha Tatum could not be there because all the city council members attended his funeral, and we certainly understand that. But we did have a few firefighters that joined us today as well. Again, September is Preparedness Month. Remember, hurricane season begins in June 1st, and ends November 31st. The most active season for Houston area, the region Gulf Coast, is August and September. So, Harvey was August. So those are just kind of some of the highlights that we've had today. I do want to say that if you need to call in. He's going to put the number up shortly. And we will be back on October the 3rd at 4 o'clock, same time. And we'll be back again on October 31st. So those of you who went and got it confused today, and you went to South Union, which is our southeast location, the Southeast Community Partnership Exchange Breakfast is next Thursday, October 3rd at 9 o'clock, 288 at Holly Hall. The public is invited and free. And then on October 31st, we'll be back at the Northeast breakfast at Northside Missionary Baptist Church. But we'll be back to talk about that later. Today, we have two guests with us now, and we'll have another one joining us. And what I want them to do first is just give a little cameo on who you are, what you're running for. We don't want the canned speech right now, but we want to know who you are. And then just hit one passion point that, whether it's on your campaign literature or not, what is one of your campaign passion points? Then after that, we want to see the audience hears the canned speech all the time. Let's loosen up a little bit. We want to know what the hell's really going on the campaign. Y'all be cussing each other out. What y'all really be doing? You know, y'all be scheming on each other. What y'all? You see what I mean?
Right. Gotcha.
So let's start with you, Ms. Doc.
Well, I'm Carla Braley. Thanks again for having me on the show, Charles.
Okay.
This is an honor just to be able to, converse about what's happening in our district and about the race, and to know that someone's awake and thinking about 2019 and how that connects to 2020 as well. I'm a professor at Texas Southern University, and I say first and foremost, I'm a mother of a 10-year-old little girl who I'm raising to be civically engaged. Matter of fact, I'm awaiting Charles to see if she ran for president. And so they had elections today, so
Nice.
5th grade class. So wondering how that's gonna go. I await that phone call. But I've been at TSU for about 9 years. I've been an educator for about 20 years. Native Houstonian, I work, live, and play in the district. Parents relocated from Abbeville, Louisiana. And first place was that they landed was off of Tier Western, some startup apartments, and later on moved and bought their first home. And ever since, I've just been a proud Houstonian, and graduated from Madison High School, went off to college to Southwest Texas State University, which is now Texas State, and I came back for a little while, freeze on jobs, so I couldn't find a job. And eventually I decided to relocate to Washington, D.C., where I finished my graduate work at Howard University. Stayed there for a little while, finished that, came back home, and that's when I, basically entered education. So I've taught at basically all levels. And shortly after that, I decided to move back. Well, I was assistant principal at Harmony Science for a little while, and moved back to Washington, D.C. to finish my doctorate work, and decided to stay. And that's where I became, I guess, a professional public servant leader, and worked in the district as director of community affairs. And we had 9 constituent offices that fell under my oversight. And one of those offices was very similar to what we have here, neighborhood services. Mm-hmm. And so eventually I came back home, I had my daughter, wanted to, raise her with a village. And I've been here, been back for about 10 years now. And it was no other place that I wanted to live when I moved back, but District D, the culturally rich area that it is. I think, it is important that we embrace all that is in D, whether it's from the arts, whether it's, the historical preservation as relates to the Emancipation Park. All of that, I think, is absolutely essential.
Okay, so let's jump over here to the other educational component here. Now, you are the candidate that's representing the beast, the big HISD.
The beast, that's a
good
description.
Yes. Yes, tell us a little bit about you and what's your passion point, and
Sure.
Then we want to get into the nitty-gritty.
Be happy to, yes. My name is Matt Barnes, and my passion point is just being a parent. So I'm a dad, 3 kids, a black boy, which has a whole nother level of conversation that we could have a show just about that, raising a black boy in America, particularly in 3rd Ward. Been a 20-year resident of the historic 3rd Ward. I live on Southmore, loved, as Dr. Braley mentioned, loved the rich texture of the community. As a dad, though, I have also had a chance to work on 8 different educational boards, from a university, public university, all the way down to a Head Start system board. And so this idea of being a trustee is something I kind of get. I've been doing it for 20 years. But during that same period of time, I've been working as a volunteer coach for parents. Parents who are low income, who are trying to get the best shot for their kids. And most of my stories, most of my passion comes from how do you arm parents? How do you help and come alongside of a parent to let them learn how to fight for their kids. Because frankly, our educational system has been expecting teachers, administrators to work miracles. We can't look at that anymore. We have to begin thinking about how do we arm parents to help join us in this fight for their kids. Every parent I've met, and I've met with hundreds and hundreds of parents, sitting at at the kitchen table, or in their living room, or at a food court someplace. Every parent has a dream for their kids, and HISD should be in the dream-making business, but instead it frustrates parents all too often. So for me, my passion area is how do we arm parents, how do we help them become the owners of their child's education, because without them, we're going to have another generation of kids that are going to move from education into prison or worse, and that's what I'm fighting for, and that's why I'm running for school board.
Well, since Doc has to leave in about 15 or less minutes, let me see here if I can mix this question up. You're running for a city council seat. You're running for a education seat in the same district, right?
Yep,
Yes.
that's right.
Now, right now, historically, it is not necessarily the optic does not exist of elected officials that represent the same district as working as a team.
Good point.
That paradigm escapes us right now.
It does.
And historically. So how would you, we still want to know some of the nitty-gritty, okay, about what have you seen, what have you learned as you move through District D that surprised you? So that's one, is what surprised you on this journey that you found out somewhere on your campaign? And then the other thing is, how would you envision working with the state level, the school district level, so on and so on? What would it look, how would it function?
Okay, so first I'll say, in terms of connecting to passion, my passion is quality of life.
No, we don't want that one.
No, so I'm about
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why.
I'm going to connect to it.
Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because if you answer the one we're talking about with what have you seen and what would it look like, put the passion in it.
Okay.
It's gonna come in.
Okay.
I know it's gonna come in. You're gonna get there.
So, I mean, in terms of surprise and what I've seen, just the commonality of how many areas of the district are having some of the similar issues, and really to a degree almost feeling like some areas are practically invisible, where they really have been pushing, whether it's from trash pickup, whether it's from tire dumping, whether it's just from abandoned homes, to the point of being able to just have a quick response even from 311. Still surprised, though, that some of the issues that they have have not necessarily been addressed in a way that I think that they could. And I think part of that is developing communication where you're meeting people where they are, where you're having those town halls, you're having, a way that you're very accessible. And I think that connects to being able to build coalitions across the board. This is a very complex district, but it's a complex city. We're about to be, third, we're fourth, now going to be third shortly. And we just cannot do this in a compartment, right? It has to be that we're developing those municipal relationships, those corporate relationships. All of those partnerships are going to be very important for us to really move forward in what District D needs to be, what the city needs to be, and some things as I'm sitting, because we're having, we may have talked about this, Charles. There have been a number of candidate forums that District D candidates have been asked to participate in, and just to see how many of those forums overlap in terms of constituent services. That's the one thing that you just can't bend on. That's the one thing as a council person, whether you take that $750,000 budget that we have, we will have to put some money aside that we know is landmark for constituent services. That's something you can't touch. We got to be reliable, because it's almost a do and die for some people. You know, I was at a meeting this morning, and you know, they were talking about how important it is just to go and check on your neighbor. And unfortunately, one of our elders passed, and that was due, you know, to, you know, they found out because eventually someone was very assertive about going to check on her. But the reality is we need to know our neighbors. The reality is that if you're going to do business in the district, if you're going to live in the district, we all have to be socially responsible to keep the district moving forward. You know, and that, you know, I'm very passionate about that.
So what would it look like working with HISD trustee? How would that look?
I would think that we would have almost a monthly number one meeting, where even if it's just, you know, including some of the stakeholders, but also with parents in the area, and they don't have to be for one school. I think it's very important that we overlap in terms of what the district looks like. So one of it is looking at federal funding to see what programs are available that, of course, I can't be a trustee, but I can provide and push for enrichment programs that make the connection.
Historically, because you said you're not a trustee, historically, there have been low-performing elected officials. You know, the question is, if you label this district as low performing, you automatically have to label the elected official low performing.
That's right.
Okay, let's
there with you.
make it even.
Yep.
Okay, you can't come in with all this, you know, Harvard, whatever it is, and then you got low performing school, and you've been in the district 20 years. Now we've had some elected officials like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that your constituents are his constituents, his
That's
constituents are your constituents. So if he go to messing up, you shouldn't be giving him no professional courtesy.
I absolutely
That's
agree.
what we've seen in the past. They give each other a pass.
Yeah.
Charles, I've been teaching a long time, 20 years. And you're
a youngster.
I'll stay young. I have no problem with that,
right,
Charles. I'll be young 20 years from now too. We can talk. I have a birthday too, by the way, Saturday, so I'm getting younger.
Yeah, I'm not giving you no present.
But I think one of the reputations that I built, even with my students and working with people, is no, it's not an option for us. And we have too much on the table to lose. It's been too long that we haven't had a seat at the table. And when we get a seat at the table, we've been voiceless. When we get a seat at the table, we are oftentimes given a menu. And if you go outside of that menu, again, your voice is not necessarily appreciated. We can't afford to do that. It's too much on the line. When you talk about gentrification, affordable housing, particularly in District D, we just have to be able to have those ongoing conversations. And for me, I love the community. I love them enough that I'm willing to fight and I'm willing to champion. And most people who know me know I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call Mr. Barnes and say, Mr. Barnes, we need to have a conversation. And if that doesn't necessarily work, then the community is going to be empowered. One of the issues that I see on the trail is that the community, it's not enough transparency. So even as far as who serves on boards and what capacity do they serve on boards, does the community know that? If not, why don't they know that? Do they know what issues are coming down the pipeline? What development is coming down the pipeline? So by the time the community finds out, a lot of times the plan has already moved forward. So you don't plan for the past. You have a vision for the future. And that's what we have to have. And so I'm willing to be an advocate, both to stakeholders and other potential, community leaders. I don't have a problem doing that.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, can you start talking on those two items and kind of?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So first, the question you asked was, what am I seeing on the campaign trail? I'm seeing anger. I'm seeing a lot of folks who are looking at a school board that will not take responsibility for their own failures, and looking at a state now that's looking at taking over a school board because of the dynamics at the board. So I'm seeing anger. But I'm also seeing some of the things that Dr. Braley is describing, which is a desire for more community, for cohesion, for people working together instead of just yelling at each other across the table. So, one of the things that, I've talked to people about is, can schools become community schools again, where the school is the location that's co-locating the place where kids come to learn, but also the place that families and communities come to receive services or partner up on the things that they need to help their community become healthier. This is a win-win opportunity. So that's an example of a place that I see real opportunity for city, school board, state ledge to work together to rebuild the communities, potentially as the school being the kind of the centerpiece. And frankly, in lots of communities, it's the school and the church that are the only institutions that are really vibrant and active in those communities. So why can't we take advantage of them? And I think there's opportunities. I love the idea of sitting down together on a periodic basis. I also love the idea of the school board meetings rotating around the district. So now we got more opportunities for residents to communicate to the school board. We have more opportunities for elected officials to be a part of that conversation as well. So I think there's a great alignment about a lot of this stuff.
So what would be your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to making a bridge where there's a public optic that District D council person is working with District D school trustee?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What would you do? So you said you'd pick up the phone. That's one thing.
One thing. 2, I think you do a community assessment to find out what's out there, and you develop, whether it's a resource list, resource app, something that people can get their hands on quickly, and include that on the website. 3. I think partnerships, that if you're coming in and you're working in the district, those programs that we know that work, the metrics show that they're efficient and they're effective, we need to get some funding to those programs. And so having, whether it's a task force or some type of communication on implementing something like that. You acknowledge that schools and churches oftentimes are the center. Well, let's make sure that we can make those that are working move forward in that way. I think that was 4 or 5.
I'm going to say this before you leave,
Okay.
because you said you had to. Is it time yet?
I'm not even looking, Charles. Let's see.
You having such a good time.
This is talking about this community talk, so
Right.
this is good.
So here's what you're going to find. Let's say both of you all get elected.
Okay? I'll hold you to that.
Hello.
How are you?
Great. How you doing?
We're joined by another candidate, Reverend Dr. Pastor Brother Sergeant Willie Davis. Now, this is an interesting mix, and this is what I was trying to get. We have an at-large district and a counterpart in another entity, government entity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so what you're going to walk into, and I want you to understand this because this is how I see it through my eyes. You're in a Disneyland corporate government Frankenstein monster that the matrix, performance, assessments, and past research for 100 years shows that the people up here have crafted, designed, and perpetuated this down here. This down here is where the goal is, because they keep taking money from this down here and moving money from here over here and up here. That, I don't care who you talk about that's in office right now or 100 years ago, that is the game. Now, if you go in there as trying to make friends and you in a room full of enemies with smiling faces, what's your strategy? And so now watch now. You in District D, him in the at-large, y'all vote on everybody's district and everybody's issue. So you can't keep him out of your community, because if you're not doing your job, he's supposed to be able to step in, because his constituents too, they voted him in.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So here we have this elephant in the room, the political elephant in the political room, that the paradigm has been the good old boy network, but it's black. And it's a white network. And it's an international network.
That's right.
And you walking into it as la-di-da.
Absolutely.
How y'all gonna deal with that?
Well, let me try, because I want to pick up on what was said earlier. The idea of relationship, of coffees, of conversation. We have to be talking, right? And because a lot of what I see around what's needed in education is community. I can't get what I want done in education without the folks around this table, right? And likewise, the city cannot function if we do not continue to prepare the next generation of students to step into leadership, to step into business ownership, to step into educational institutions that are in our neighborhood. So there is a relationship here that we must establish, because it's in both of our best interests, or all three of our best interests.
Whoa! I want you to come on.
Yeah.
Let's see if you're going. I want to see if you're going to bring the rain.
Let me
right,
see.
let's see
I hear what you said,
Yep.
but the best interest is not really us. The relationship is us, but the best interest is the people. The best interest is the community. I knew
point,
where you were
great
going.
point.
Yeah,
Yep, great point.
but let me just say, as a native Houstonian, and been in this city, and I was the one on the other side of the fence helping politicians, and there's a long list of them. In my 34 years of passion in this town, I'm no secret spy, whatever. People that know me, the same people that have known me, act now like they don't know me, simply because of the fact that they know I know them. So here's the deal. I'm not a politician. So my approach to changing what's going on in my city is not from a perspective of a politician. I'm a pastor. I'm a servant. I'm an activist. I get involved. I support these people. Many of these people holding offices, whether it be, party offices, Congress offices, city offices, my long history of that. Now, let me tell you what I want to say about this. What you just drawed out, Charles, is exactly what's going on. But what we've got to keep the constituents and people in line with is that the people, the constituents, the taxpayers, they're being played with partisan politics. They've been played, and we pit one against the other. We've been doing this for so long. In many of our communities, we don't know how to stop doing it. But yet we cry and we moan and we groan about what's not going on and what we're not getting in our communities. Where when you're playing, like my mother and them used to say, if you lay with dogs, you're going to get up with fleas. So don't expect to stop scratching when you laying with the dogs. The reality of it is, I said 4 years ago, when I ran for city council in this position, I said then that Houston was going to look the way it looks right now. I said it then. And then people have even went through the point to try to put me in a party there. And let me tell you something. I tell people
What he's talking about is they tried to say he was a registered Republican.
That's right.
It's so, that's why I want to know what's going on on the trail.
Yeah.
You know, the real nitty gritty stuff.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. And the fact of the matter is, I have been who Willie Davis has been who I've been for 34 years in this community. Because I don't agree with you, then you take a person, throw it under the bus. I remember I got a call from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who I worked with, partnered with, her and all of them, Gerald, Carl, Linda, all of them, everybody. And let me tell you, when I went to Chicago for 4 years, I pastored one church for 20. He knows it. I went to Chicago, pastored another church for 4, came back. And let me tell you how this thing worked. When Congresswoman Lee, who was in our community, and everybody knew Willie was a big supporter of her, when she chose Hillary over Obama, very people in this town threw her under the bus. I used to get called from them and say, bruh, can you imagine people? I had pastors call me, Willie, did you hear Sheila? I said, whoa, wait a minute. Sheila's from Houston, Obama's from Chicago. You mean to tell me that you're going to take the position of a person who represented you in your city, brother, and throw them under the bus because of their choice? You're talking about the people in the same party. So see, there's honor among thieves. And many of us don't even have honor for one another in order that what's in the best interest of the people. So they try the same thing with me. And here's what they're doing. But our community people are getting smart. They're getting tired of it. And these people are playing us, these little groups and this little group, the interest group, and who paid who and who getting this and whatever.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Why don't we go on and get to the nitty gritty?
That's what I'm getting to the nitty gritty.
Get to the nitty-gritty.
And see, this is the problem, Charlie, that we've got to stop. And when I came back 4 years, here's what I told them when I ran. I said, listen, Houston, listen to me. There are certain things that go along with when you call yourself the big town. Now, we the third largest. We so multicultural. You're doing all these little pipe up things, but guess what? But you're forgetting about the minimal thing, the crime. I told them 4 years ago, crime was going to uptick in this city. I served in South Chicago. I watched it. Prosperity follows crime. Now, we can say whatever the heck we want to say, but prosperity goes where money is. And if you don't get in front of it, you're going to end up behind it, and it's going to roll you over. And then when you hear people talking, we got 23,000 gangs in this town. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I know one thing, crime is going up. The safety of our community is being overlooked because of political and partisan politics. Dollars are not coming into our community that can come, that are not showing up. So let me say this. When I get to council, and I'm going to get there, and when I get there, the whole objective, and I've said this to Charlie before, the first thing we have to do is let's identify. If this young lady, my sister, become the councilman for District D, and I'm at large, Charlie said it right. The whole city voted for me. Her district voted for her. We have a government.
And you.
And me. And the governmental system that says we are nonpartisan. But we got people in the community, these little groups, keep driving it. Who's the D? Who's the R? Who's the I? Guess what? We the citizens. That's what we are. And it doesn't matter if she's D and is a D, and if I'm over here in...
What's a Democrat, you mean, right?
There's a Democrat.
Yes.
And if I'm over here...
You can cuss with that word.
Well,
don't say Democrat.
But you see, but the point is, we've been in this thing for a long time, what we call the battlefield. Me and Charlie was out there, and see, one of the things that probably, it don't surprise me, it just disappoints you. When you have a record of changing things in the community, and that don't mean anything. You know, we fought community reinvestment that brought the first bank. This little old young fella here, because I had more hair and a lot thinner back then, but in the 80s. And I went up against a private industry to fight for my community, which now has benefited. I can name you churches and groups who have benefited from that. So all of a sudden you think I'm going to throw away my community for what? You see, this is the nonsense that we keep on allowing to come in our communities. Now it's to roll over into the education system.
Yes.
And look what has happened. My first year, and I'll end my conversation, my first year in Chicago, and I thank God for letting me accept that 4 years in Chicago because I got a good lesson. about how to deal with an urban city with different demographics. But we're turning into Chicago politics. That's what's happening.
That's right.
And quiet as it's kept, and the players that are doing it, they know what they're doing. But let me tell you, the first year I went in Chicago as the pastor, you know, they have an educational system when you live in a particular area. The pastor and the people in that community actually become the monitor of that school. We could fire the principal, the assistant principal. You could do that. I'm talking about mothers, the pastor. We sat on this board, and we literally interviewed the principal. The first year I was there, they closed down 50 schools in Chicago in the black community. 50. And what did it do? It moved with all this gang connection. You can go every 5 blocks in South Side Chicago, and there's a gang. Go another 5, there's another gang. And they gang kids at earliest elementary school. And then what they do to this, but here's my point. They did that. Demographically, it shifted those 50 kids that those schools they closed into other schools. Now you didn't mix the gangs together. You see what I mean? We let these people play us.
Yep.
And it's the same identical thing that's going on in Houston. And it's time for the citizens of Houston to wake up, smell the coffee, and stop playing with this stuff. Stand up for people that's going to represent you. The city government is nonpartisan. And people need to start listening to that. See, it doesn't bother me because I know those same folk who jumped up, it's, oh, Willie is a registered Republican. I'm not a registered Republican. I ain't never registered Republican a day in my life. But guess what? I'll never tell anybody that I vote straight ticket for nobody. Because to me, that you enslaving yourself to somebody. You pick who you want to pick. But don't play that when you know you do the same thing with people behind closed doors. And I'm talking about right now in this city, from the council to the administration. They talk to Republicans. Oh, I got a Republican friend. Oh, I got a Democratic friend. We know they do it. But they come out here and they promote this nonsense, and all it does, it divides our communities, and it has to stop.
Well, you want to have a closing statement before, or you gonna stay with us?
I'm gonna try to stay as long as I'm trying to get to a civic club too. I
Oh,
think
my
I'm speaking,
goodness.
So let's go over here.
Yeah.
Let's go over.
Respond to some of that?
No, well, yeah, I want you to chime in,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna set this little plate for you.
Okay.
According to the global report card from Texas A&M's Bush School of Public Policy, they said that 60% of a child's education is directly the child's achievement is directly due to the principal and the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They ain't said nothing about the parent.
Right.
Said the teacher and the principal. Now, when you have a superintendent who stays in the district and gets $100,000 plus bonus for killing schools, I made a tape and said and sent it to his hashtag, Terry Greer, you need to be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
I sent it to him direct.
Mm-hmm.
He got it. Now, but none of the other elected officials outside of education said nothing about a blue ribbon task force. We got to stop this. We got to fix this, whatever. Now, they let him take all the principals and teachers out that were institutionalized. Knowledge, tenure in the district, subject matter experts in the district, and then put in neophytes. How you gonna deal with that?
Well, let me say it still happens that teachers and principals are turning over 1-2 years in a row. I mean, in fact, the elementary schools feeding up to Worthing, there's one principal who's been there more than, I think it's 3 years. And he's doing great, by the way. But this is part of something you said, Pastor, about the community being involved in deciding how the school operates.
Absolutely.
Right? So when a high-performing principal is in a place in a school and they move on, the community has very little voice in deciding who comes next, or even holding the principal accountable. Right? This is what I call bottom-up education reform, where you've got community members that are pushing on the school and holding the school to account. That's where, again, there's a connection point between all three of us here. If the community is starting to push up on the school, the community can also be pushing up on the social services and the community services that are required to make that community healthy. But again, what I'm seeing is when a principal turns over every 2 years. Yates, before they turned it up, they had 11 principals in 10 years, I think.
Oh.
That's right.
So and that is criminal, right?
right. That's
And there's a
Cashmere,
community.
too.
Yeah, it happens. It's consistent,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
And there's a community response here that is bigger than the trustees.
Yeah.
This is where I would actually need folks on city council to say, wait a second, hold on. Community, let's go ahead and start to organize around this. Because again, if that is what's happening in the school, you're never going to build relationships with the community. The principal will never build a relationship with the teachers will never have a relationship with the community. And if you don't have a relationship, you've got nothing. That is why the damage of losing a school is so powerful, because all those relationships get torn apart. That is the risk that we have anytime we close a school, that we lose this asset, we lose these relationships, we lose the opportunity to build something, the stability to build on something in the community.
Yeah.
And if you are building the next generation of citizens, then you have a vested interest in making sure, as a city council person,
Yes.
that the school district is producing the product
Yeah.
For the
and the
next
skills
workforce.
for the next workforce.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So,
yes.
so this, now, you said something like this: 50 schools in Chicago in 12 years. 77 schools closed in HISD. Now, my numbers may be off of here a little
Sure.
bit, but the ratio is what I'm trying to pull
I
out.
understand.
48 of them were in the black community.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then there was like 11 in the Hispanic community, something like that. And then the other was mixture. Nobody said nothing.
No one said a word.
But and I do have to. But Charles, I think it still goes back to we have to empower the community. So they don't have to react to all the issues, because we already know the issues are there. But we have to have it where they could be proactive. And that means, having the conversations to show, well, these are the historical patterns. These are the things that have been happening. What do you want? We come up with a plan. We have a vision. You will be very aware of what District D's vision is, because it's bigger than me. It's bigger than a position.
That's right.
You will be aware.
Absolutely.
And when I talk to you, this is what our needs are for the district.
Yes.
So when you're coming to me, because you're going to have other initiatives across the city,
Absolutely.
but you have to know, well, this is what District D needs.
That's right.
And you can't budge on that.
Yeah.
It's some things that when you're fighting, you got to be willing to stand.
Absolutely.
And it's hard. That's the hard part about leadership. And we don't always make the right decisions.
No, we don't.
But when you are leading for the people, putting people first,
That's right.
then you're serving. And it's even through that process sometimes if you don't make the best decision. It's that process that would teach you. But as long as you're in relation with the community and having an open dialogue, I won't say it's forgiven, but you can talk through that.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think that we're getting in these positions, not being clear about what are the needs of the community, and having those conversations early on to say, okay, Willie, this is what my community want. These are my top 3.
Yes.
What's your top 3 initiatives?
That's right.
And see how we can partner with some of those. And I can't partner with you on because there are going to be some things I'm like, well, that's not what they sent me to City Hall.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me suggest this. The people in the community have always been proactive. They've always been led astray. The community is always forward moving, forward thinking, but the communication and the merchandising of negative images, negative data, that it has become the popular version. Okay, now it's just like when I was at City Council the other day, and I said, there are assets and resources in communities that you all have labeled, whether it's the police department or the health department, as with unmet needs, hard to serve, at risk, and all that. There are still assets there.
Yeah.
There are still resources there.
Yes.
There are still skills there.
Yes.
Okay? Now,
Strength.
I told the people at the different universities that I interact with, time out for research. I say, you have a library full of research on what you've researched on the black community, what they want, what they need, and you got a 2060 plan that don't include them.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
You don't include them, because see, what stops crime is employment.
Absolutely.
It comes down.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Enrichment and exposure.
Now,
That's right.
now at the school level, see, when they came in with this slick game, shared decision making, that was a way to combine and concentrate power and take it away from the mass.
one side. Yeah.
Okay? And the mass had no voice. When they took away PTAs, and this is over a 20-year projected time that it was methodically implemented to give principals control with PTOs and not PTAs. You got superintendents, board trustees, and teachers that are members of a local association, regional, national, and statewide association, teachers, principals, school board trustee. School board got an association, y'all got an association with city council people that all meet, but they don't want parents to be a part of an association. That's just almost like, in a sense, a union.
Yeah.
Then what they did was corrupted the information that was given to the parents. Then they pulled it back. Now watch this. At one time, with the Texas Education Agency, I was considered, Charity Productions, to be a partner with the Title I department in creating something that deals with parent education, with the rules and the guidelines, how it works. Because that's the problem. Parents don't know what's the process, and they don't want them to know what the process is.
No, they don't.
So I was moved out of that spot. Charity Production wasn't big enough at that time. You're talking about 15 years ago. That's what they said. They printed a booklet on parent rights and responsibilities. And they printed it word for word as it is in the state statute.
Wow.
Except for one sentence, which was the first sentence in the statute. It said, parents shall be partners in education with the district. And it went on to lay it out. Everything was exactly like it was in the statute, but that first number, A, was taken out in their publication. So if the Texas Education Agency took it out and then distributed 10, 20,000 of these booklets, why would you take out shall? Why would you take that one that empowers the parents to get the records, to talk about the curriculum? That's evil. That's by design. So it is so many high places, high-powered, compounded year after year after year games run on parents. There's a school. As a school, when people pay taxes, school taxes, the school treats the taxpayer like they dirt dogs. Nothing. They'll tell you, and I got it on videotape at a board meeting, or committee meeting, where a school board trustee, I call it tricks and traps, tricked this parent that was making a recommendation at a meeting. They was making a recommendation. Okay, we had a recommendation meeting, committee meeting. It's on tape. It's on. I ain't gonna tell y'all who it is. I'll tell you when we come off the show. Watch this. So the question was, ma'am, the lady was suggesting something about food service and dealing with the children, right? Yeah. ma'am, do you have a child in the district? Standard line from trustees.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a child in the district? They said no. Well, I think it's a little disingenuous of you trying to recommend something and you don't even have a child in the district. That trustee didn't have a child in the district.
Right.
But this woman is paying taxes now.
That's right.
You gonna tell me I can't say nothing? I'm the one paying y'all, man. I'm the one putting the money in. I'm one of these millions of folks that's paying the taxes. Okay, so see, there's a power divide from the parents. They don't want the parents and the community to get together. Because see, the parents may not be part of this part of the community, but it is part of the community.
Absolutely.
So why not put the parents and the taxpayer together as a partnership and for accountability and governance? I mean, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, I just wanted to add the point that the educational role of our school district within the city of Houston, from the city standpoint, has, for some reason or another, has been kind of dodging the bullet, as if the Houston Independent School District don't exist. Since it's not under our jurisdiction. We've had people say, well, that's they got their own system or whatever. But at the same time, the basic role of what advances the city forward economically and whether or not companies come in and out is based upon the educational system. And so if I'm a leader and leaders from the city, the office of the mayor and the office of the council, and I'm not concerned and I don't get involved within the pretense of the educational system, then why am I bragging on a city that has a failing educational system? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I remember in conversation with some of the pastors in Fort Bend County that I engage in, because my territory expands to Fort Bend, Houston, as well as Houston proper. And in the Fort Bend community, they were talking about the educational aspect. Well, Yolanda, who is now the new mayor of Missouri City, and I was in a meeting with her, and she brought out the fact that some of the companies that they had went to address that would come into Missouri, and they said, well, no, we looked at the educational level, and so we it's just not feasible based upon the results of the education GPA productivity of your school. So you see, it's those little things, and we try to brush it under the rug as if it doesn't exist. So I think what Charles is saying is absolutely correct. If people make that an emphasis to study it and bring it before the council, I mean, we just have a whole bucket list of things that we've got to do if we're going to care about Houston.
We got 2 minutes. You closing statement, then I'm going to do a closing statement. We're going to get out of here.
All right.
All right. So.
All right. What a wonderful time to be in Houston, in District D. I pride myself on being a servant leader. I think I've been telling people, one of my mottos is public service is not an option, it's a way of life, particular for us. I also have the experience with a track record of serving people first. We can have all the builders in the world, but if they don't serve and accompany people, then we lose community, we lose the village. And so I want to be able to run on a campaign that's built on accountability, built on advocacy, accessibility, and affordability, and last but not least, authenticity. We absolutely have to have that to have a high level of transparency that we need in order to have a leadership that to move the district forward.
Well, again, for me, my perspectives on education are coming from my board experience, but also working with parents. I love what you're bringing up today, the idea of us being more thoughtful about working across institutional boundaries.
Yes.
Because if HISD is successful, the community is going to be successful, and vice versa. And if we're failing, the community is going to fail. So we have to think differently about this. For me, here are my platform points. 1, early childhood reading. We have to get ahead of the problem in this school to prison pipeline that we hear all the time, but yet the district does very little to actually stem this process. And then also on the later ends of the educational experience, we got to make sure students are leaving towards a job or a career or college or military. Those are the only options that they should be considered and prepared for. And the way we do that is by re-engaging the community, the parents around the educational experience. That's what I am preaching about every chance I get. Although I'm not a pastor, I am preaching on this.
That's all right. No, you don't have to be a pastor to preach.
Well, I'm glad you all had the time to come and share with the audience and some of your experiences and ideas and thoughts. Currently, there is a process and it's been in place a long time. It's called interlocal agreements. Mm-hmm. They do it all the time with HISD and the city of Houston, the county, and all that. It's not new. Mm-hmm. Okay. The other thing is, I'm gonna suggest this as a thought and an idea. Mm-hmm. When I hear people say, I'm not a politician, it's like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
So here's a thought. I'm not that kind of politician, and I'm gonna work hard with your help to be the best of politicians.
Absolutely.
Because you can't deny the profession.
Well said.
Because it's part of the craft, right?
That's
it's
part
like
of
a
the craft.
basketball player saying
That's
you're not
right.
a basketball player.
Right.
Right.
So you trying to be the best basketball player, even though you may be fair, you still working to be the best.
Yeah.
And so so instead of saying that after they lost $90 billion, say it's a work in progress, say that's a work in progress. Yeah. All right, this is Charles X. White. We're signing off with Community Views and Solutions. We'll see you on October the 3rd, same time, same station from 4 to 5, right here. Don't forget, I'll see you then.
Very good.